Hello, Internet audience. My name is Sam Berliner. I use he and they pronouns, and I'm a programmer with Frameline44. I'm super excited to welcome you to today's film's Q&A for TRANSHOOD. First of all, thank you so much to our audience for joining us for the Q&A. And we are honored to have a bunch of guests from the film here today, and I'm going to let them introduce themselves to you. Please say your name and your role with the film, and then we'll dive in.
Okay, I'm Sharon Liese, and I had the honor of being the director and producer of the film.
I'm Kimberly Reed, and I was the executive producer on the film.
Hi, I'm Debbie Jackson, and I'm the mom of Avery.
Hi, I'm Cameron, and I'm one of the.
I'm in the kid in the film. Hi, I'm Bryce, and I'm Cameron's mom.
Wonderful. We're so happy that you all could join us and that we could make this virtual get-together happen. So thank you. First off, I just want to say congratulations on a really fantastic film, and we're just so honored to be able to share it with our audience here at Frameline. And I also want to acknowledge that this is a really hard time to be in the world, and I appreciate you all taking the time to be here today to chat and also having worked on a project that is so positive. And then the last thing I was going to say before we start is also, as someone who started transitioning in my 20s, which was over 10 years ago, I found this film really fascinating to see not only how trans youth and teens think about gender, like only within the past 10 years, it's so different, and also within the context of our current world and social media and politics. It was really, really interesting to get to have that glimpse into the world. So thank you for making this film. All right. So Sharon, I thought I would start off with you and ask, how did this film come to be? What started you making it?
Well, I've always been very intrigued by coming of age stories, and I don't know what it is about kids and growing up, but I'm just always attracted to those stories. And about over 6 years ago, there was the Transgender Institute opened in Kansas City, and I was really interested to learn what they were doing. And I knew that they were working with a lot of adults. And then I found that they were also working with a ton of kids. And I was really excited that there was that kind of resource in Kansas City in the middle of the country for kids transitioning and their families. And so I connected with them and went to some support groups and met some families. And actually, Debbie was one of the ones who I met first, and she helped introduce me to some other families. And then the project just kind of took off from there.
You basically answered like 5 of my questions in one. Way to be efficient. Okay, so you live in Kansas City. That's why it's in Kansas City.
Yes. And that actually made filming so much easier for me. And I think, I was able to catch moments that you don't always get to capture when you don't live in the city and you're not sort of embedded because you live there. And there's being embedded, and then there's actually being embedded and living there. So, we could shoot when Bryce would call me and say something was going on, and we could be there in an hour with crew. So that was really helpful to be able to tell the kind of stories that we wanted to tell.
For sure. And that just makes so much sense. I was just like, how did they know to be there right then? So sneaky / brilliant.
Or just being able to be there at moments that when we didn't think that things were going on, and because we were just like, okay, let's just go shoot a normal morning.
Right.
when you're getting up and having bagels or something, and it turns into something else. And on the flip side, I will say for Debbie, because Debbie, there were moments that we didn't capture that happened that were really hard to tell. To tell those the parts of those stories, but you can't be there. I mean, I would be there 24/7, but I don't know that everybody else would want me to be. So
Yeah, for sure. I'm curious, Debbie, can you talk a little bit about what Sharon's saying? What were some of those moments that that she wasn't there for?
Now I'm really curious which
Yeah.
things happened that she wishes she could have seen. I think it's probably just because so much of our story is around some of the public activism that we had been doing, and you never know when something's going to come up with that. A lot of it would happen when we were traveling and on the road together, or just a phone call comes in and something is happening elsewhere in the community. Also, Avery, if you might have noticed, is a little cantankerous. So some days she was very excited to have Miss Sharon come over and do some filming with her. And then as soon as she got here, she's like, oh, I was in the middle of something. I don't really want to do that today. So there were, I think Sharon did a really good job of interviewing Avery to pull out some of the stories behind some moments. But she was definitely at an age where she was like, I might not cooperate right now. And it was probably a little bit harder to do that. Hey, something's happening. Come on over. Like could happen with Cameron and Bryce, because he was a little bit more mature than she was at the time.
Got it. Well, I guess that's all part of making a film, all part of documentary. And I'll tell you, we don't know as the audience, we don't know what we're not seeing, so we don't miss it. Awesome. All right. Hey, Kim, I'd love to ask you a question. How did you learn about this film and get connected to it?
Yeah, I guess a couple years into filming, Sharon gave me a call. She had seen a film that I did, which is called Prodigal Sons, which is about me going back to Montana where I was raised and coming out as trans. And I think that those kind of similar storylines where we're talking about a story about trans people in the middle of the country was interesting to her. And so I came on as executive producer in large part because, at the Q&As after Prodigal Sons, there were kind of two types of questions I would get. One of people who were associating with me and could relate to my story. And then the other type of question, the other type of people I would talk to would be parents of trans kids who needed resources. They didn't know how to be good parents for their kids or how to be better parents for their kids. And, I transitioned in my 20s, so I was also not, the best person to talk to about, trans kids. And I just felt like there needed to be a documentary film that could serve as, not the story of every trans kid ever, everywhere, but could just be a really good portrait of what these different families of trans and, gender expansive youth were going through, in especially interesting because it takes place in the middle of America. So I wanted to do what I could to support this film and make sure that it came out and it had input from folks like me. But that's how we got connected. In a lot of ways, I felt like I was just trying to support the stories of kids who were transitioning in a way that I wish I could have done when I was younger.
Mm. Well, I'm really glad you came on board. And I think that it's possible to see when films have input from people within trans communities. And I don't know, I felt it and I appreciated it. Plus it's just really cool because I love your film. So awesome. Well, I'm really glad you're involved. Hey, Jay and Bryce. Also, Jay, should I call you Cameron? Are you going by Cameron now?
Well, Jay is what people know me in the film, but Cameron's like my first name. So I don't really care, honestly.
Okay. Then I'll say Jay, I think. Hi. How are you both doing? Films end, but life keeps going, and I'm just so curious to hear what's happened since the filming of the project.
Well, I graduated high school, and then over the summer I just kind of worked a lot, worked all summer, and then I started college online, and now I just do school and work.
Well, it's exciting. I realized that, of course, right now we're all in the pandemic, so it must be online. And I was like so excited to ask you about college and stuff. And so I'm bummed out. But at least it means you get to hang out with your really cool parents, hopefully, because they seem really awesome. Hey, Bryce, how are you?
I'm good. I'm a little sad that he has to experience his first year of college online just because school in general was so tough for him. So I was hoping, we had been preaching to him the last year or two is college is this, amazing thing. And there's so many people you're going to meet and it's so different from high school. And now he's like, I'm going to college and he's like walking up the stairs to go to my room to get online. So, that's a little bit of a bummer, but we're doing good. We're in the middle of trying to transition to new doctors because he's 18 now. So that's a little bit of a thing for me because I call and then they want to talk to him and he's not home, but they can't talk to me because he's 18. So that's a little bit of a curve for us, but.
Well, it's exciting to see you. I feel like I've gotten to hang out with you in a movie, which is a weird kind of relationship. So it's like, oh, hi, we know each other. You don't know me. Cool. Hey, Debbie, how are you? How's Avery? What's happened since filming in your world?
We're doing pretty well. I mean, because we're at home a lot in homeschooling. Our pandemic life didn't have to change as much. But I will say she's gone through this tremendous growth spurt. So she starts out so tiny in the film. And just a couple of days ago, I looked over and realized I was having to look up at her. So we went and stood next to each other. She's about 5 inches taller than I am now. So she's, and eating and sleeping so much. So she's definitely going through a growth spurt. So I need to call and get on with our endocrinologist and just make sure, because of height, weight changes and all those other things, that there's nothing we need to do. But yeah, I mean, she's doing really well. She's 13 now, and maybe it's not an age thing because at 13, she's still rather cantankerous and was like, I'm still retired. I just really don't need to get on and answer questions right now. Enough of my life is out there in the world. But she's enjoying, being a teenager and making more friends online, trying to figure out what to do with her life and what direction she wants to go in, and just really enjoying being a normal 13-year-old.
That sounds great. What color is her hair right now?
Currently, it's a lot of roots and a lot of faded bleached blonde. But we've just reordered some color and it's going to go to a purple and turquoise ombre.
Wow.
Yeah.
So fancy. Very cool. Hey, Sharon, I was curious if anything surprised you over the filming over the 5 years, because that's a good chunk of time to stay in touch with people and go back and yeah, if anything stood out to you that you want to talk about.
Yes, so much surprised me all the time. I was surprised all the time. I was surprised at things that I was learning. I was surprised at what parents were learning. And I guess one of the things that shouldn't have been so surprising, but was how resilient these kids are. So much changing and being thrown at them. And while, they're experiencing things in their lives and their parents are, and everybody's trying to adjust and adapt, there was so much resilience. It was just surprising, but very inspiring to me.
For sure. Another question along the same lines is, with documentary, of course, you don't know what's going to happen, and you have your subject and you follow it through. And I'm super curious if you're able to talk about the subjects who aren't in the Q&A today, just to hear how they're doing. Lena and Phoenix.
Yeah, Lena is doing well. And the last I talked to her, she was working in retail. And there was a little bit of a pause on that because of the pandemic. So I'm actually not sure if she has gone back. But she was very happy at the time I talked to her it's probably a couple months ago. And I just saw Phoenix yesterday. They actually stopped by my house to pick up a film poster. So I saw it, and he was doing great. And Zach said he thinks that Phoenix is very happy right now.
That's great.
Mm-hmm.
I was curious if the family around Phoenix maybe felt ambivalent about the film, and maybe they do, and because things change over time, and so it's really nice to hear that at the very least that Zach is super enthusiastic. I love hearing his words of wisdom during those sections of the film. They help calm the moments.
Yes, exactly. He's he continues to be very affirming, which is great. He's really proud of the film, and he's proud of Phoenix, and has I believe the film has given them opportunities to talk more about the issues raised in the film, and specifically about Phoenix. So I hope that continues to be a source of helping them to communicate about those important things. And it's very interesting. Molly has really never wavered on her commitment to being in the film and having her family in the film. So she is what she is.
Well, I'm glad to hear it, because you never know. And I thought that it was really important to keep something like that in the film, of course, because it just feels really real. There's so many different ways of being in the world, of growing up, of understanding yourself, of family changes, of all kinds of stuff. And even if how his mom expresses herself later on in the film is really hard to hear, I think it's important to show that sometimes things like this happen, and hopefully you can find support in other places. And so for me, the balance really comes with the dad, and having him just even the most delicate way, he's just always keeping that door open. Like, if that's fine, and if you want to chat, great. I really appreciate that guy.
Yes, yeah, and I will say that there of course was lots of conversation around how to handle that story and what its role in the film would be. So it was not without a lot of thought that each frame of that part of the story, was considered. Yeah. So Debbie, you may have some. Sorry, Sam, you're the moderator.
No, go.
But I know that Debbie has a lot of thoughts on that.
Well, I mean, we see so many kids who start young expressing gender nonconformity, and there is so much fear around making a kid trans. And I wish that we hadn't made so many of these societal arbitrary rules around gender. Because if we allowed boys to play dress up, and we allowed boys to paint their nails and to love pink and want to play with dolls, and if we allowed girls to be loud and not have to just play with dolls and be super demure, and if we would just let kids be kids and not shame them for that or punish them for that, it would be so much easier to actually determine the kids who are transgender, because they could say, yeah, I do all of these things, but like Avery told us, you think that I'm a boy and you're okay with me doing these things, but I'm really a girl. Like the kids who know who they are and need the pronoun changed, who need to be addressed as a son or a daughter or just child because they're non-binary, like we would be able to see those kids so much easier and offer the support if we would just get rid of the ridiculous gender rules. And I think, that's how it started out with Phoenix's story, is they were very excited. I think Molly goes through the rundown of gender expansive, gender creative, gender fluid, gender whatever. And I think if more of us were open to that, we would be able to help our kids explore and figure out who they are. So I'm really glad that part of the story is in there. And for so many of the kids who do go through a transition period and then maybe switch back, for the most part, we know that they don't fit cisgender norms, and they never will. And it's great that they had the opportunity to explore all the different facets of themselves and figure themselves out. So I hope that in the future, Phoenix does have the support of parent who's open and is going to give him the chance to become he or they or she later or whatever, and just find the place on the spectrum where they're most comfortable.
For sure. Wouldn't it be interesting if, like, I don't know, everyone had the opportunity to explore themselves? I a lot of the time think about how much self-work I've done in exploring my own gender over the years and just know myself so well. So I think it's a healthy process to just have opportunity to explore and really think about yourself. Kim, I saw you unmute. I thought you might want to jump in.
Yeah, we all have a gender. Everybody has a gender, and whether we know it or not, we're choosing to express ourselves in a particular way. And I'm talking about trans folk, and I'm talking about cis folk. And I totally agree with you, Sam, that it's a really helpful, healthy, really beautiful thing to take a look at this gender that has been imposed upon you. And it doesn't mean you necessarily even are trans or non-binary, gender expansive in any sort of way. But just looking at these codes that we're all inculcated with, and challenging them as being, this kind of assumed part of our personality and who we all think we have to be. I think it's really healthy for all of us to take a look at that. And that's why I was really interested in helping Sharon bring this film out into the world and telling these stories, which are pretty complicated stories and sometimes aren't the most comfortable or easiest stories to tell. But yeah, I mean, and I think that Phoenix's story shows that, you know, it doesn't have to be this binary thing. And I say this as a trans person, but a lot of times trans folk are even sometimes responsible for reinforcing that binary, you know, for kind of just kind of conveying this idea that you have to be either this or that, and there's nothing in between. There's just this black and white world. And any time that we can take, you know, in a powerful place like a film that gets released out into the world to share these stories about kids, about families who are dealing with, you know, the gray in that spectrum instead of just the black or white. I think that's an important story to tell.
For sure. As is the idea that it's okay if you do have a binary identification. Like,
Of course, yeah.
so interesting how that can be heard different ways. But absolutely, it's just self-exploration, which is healthy. For sure, for sure. Hey, Jay and Bryce, I wanted to ask, how did you decide that you wanted to participate in the film? And did those reasons change over the course of filming and now the release?
Would you like to answer that?
So we went into the film because we wanted to share awareness for young people and young teenagers, like how it's okay to be who you are and kind of express and see, like, make it relatable to younger audience so that maybe it would help them talk to their parents, or maybe they could like find ways to educate themselves on it, or have their parents watch it and educate them on like what they're going through in their life. And honestly, I mean, with like what we talked about earlier, we're on the same page. Like, we just hope this helps kids out there that are struggling to talk to their parents or struggling to go through this process. Like, we're just really hoping this film kind of just gives them that boost and that confidence. Like, it's okay to be this way. It's okay to, you know, be who you are and express how you feel and what you like. You know what I mean? Like, you don't have to be a certain way. So yeah.
Pretty much.
Yeah.
You get so nervous talking.
You're doing great. I really appreciate you and your mom, and also Debbie, of course, and your family being vulnerable and being willing to have your story out there, even when it's not like perfect. Like, life is not perfect.
Well, there's no guidebook either, you know? Like, I think Debbie had said that before in like a previous Q&A, like there's no handbook to for parents how to handle it. Like, I cry in every major thing, and it's not that I don't support him, it's just it's emotional because it's his journey, but as parents, you know, it's kind of our own journey at the same time. And you know, you can be 100% supportive, but it's still tough, you know, going through it and not being able to fix it, because that's a journey that he has to go through and, you know, process. And so we kind of have to just stand there and, like, you know, kind of like a big hug and be there, but it's definitely difficult.
Yeah. Well, you can feel the love. You can tell that you're supportive and that you love each other so much. And it's beautiful to see. So thank you for being vulnerable. Debbie, I'd be curious to hear, I know that you do a lot of advocacy, and I'd love to know if you have a tidbit of a story or an anecdote about someone that you connected with and helped by being so out about having a trans kid.
Oh yeah, I have so many of those stories. I think what's been fascinating in our journey is not just the parents and the kids who reach out. I hear from, you know, kids who are like, how do I tell my mom so I can have a mom like you? Or could you talk to my mom? But I also hear from a lot of parents that are like, I'm just so scared to get it wrong. And also, coming from a Southern Baptist background, I hear from a lot of really religious families who are struggling because they don't want to give up everything they've believed, or they know they're about to lose their entire support network of family and friends if they support and trust their child. And that's a big, scary leap. It's not so much that, unaffirming parents don't love their kids. It's that they're really scared for their kids and they think they're being super protective. So you have to help walk people through that. But I also have been really inspired by a lot of adults who have seen the stories and said, if Avery can transition at 4, if she can be out and so public at 9, why am I still scared and holding back at 66? Like, I'm going to go for it. She's inspired me. So it's really been this broad range of people who have been just exposed to the idea, the innocence of a child saying, this is just who I am and take it or leave it, is something that a lot of people remember from when they were young, but times were different and they didn't have a chance to lean in and explore that. And now they're like, I want to go back to that moment and I want to do it for myself. And that's always lovely.
That's so wonderful to hear, is the impact that being out there has on people. And you never know who you're going to reach, who's going to see this film, who's going to hear you speak. And it's one of the things that I find so important about this kind of work and trans cinema, for sure. Well, with the last minute of our Q&A, I'd love to let Sharon let folks know, if anyone's watching and have other people in their life who they want to show this film to, how will they be able to see it? What's the distribution looking like? All of that stuff.
Yes. Well, after they see it at your festival,
of course,
which I really am honored to have the film in. I am so excited, and I know that everybody here is so excited too. But we have other festivals that we are going to be screening in, and then on November 12th, when the world will be a different place, we will be premiering on HBO.
Awesome.
Yeah. They've been a great partner, and it's we're really happy to be premiering there.
That's amazing. That the number of people who it's going to be able to reach just goes up from there. So congratulations, for real.
Yeah, and I'll also add that there's going to be a resource page on the HBO website for parents and kids, and then there'll be some additional content actually that Kimberly's working on. So it's going to be they're really supporting it and bringing more context to some of the issues that are raised in the film.
That's so great. That's so great. Well, congratulations to all of you. And thank you so much for putting your heart into a project that I hope will impact a lot of people in really positive ways. And to all those out there in internet land, thanks for joining us. And I hope you enjoy the rest of Frameline. Bye.
Bye. Thank you.
Thank you.